Hi everyone, welcome to Well for Pearls. This is March 2015's Video Pearl. I'm Rachel. I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Wellford Pearls, and you can get in touch with me at Rachel, R-A-C-H-E-L, at wellforpearls.com, or you can leave a comment below in the show notes, or you can contact me on Instagram and Ravelry. I've said that like 20 bazillion times already. My husband and I, Mike and I have been kind of battling technology today. We've just kind of had an uphill battle. So I recorded the show and the battery died. So then I switched cameras and the lens wouldn't focus properly. So I was kind of in focus, but what was actually in focus was my dress form. So I moved the dress form, but then it wouldn't focus on anything. And then I couldn't get my webcam to work. That was fun. And then I couldn't get the mic to work. And now I have resorted to the camera on the laptop. So I feel like I'm just battling the universe here. And this is the third weekend in a row that I've tried to record the video cast. This was meant to be something that was fun and that I looked forward to doing, and every month, January, February, and March, it's been a bit of an uphill battle to get this out. So I'm just gonna go back to basics, super simple. April's show will probably be in the same format, where I'm just using my camera on the laptop. It's not ideal, but it's really fast, and I can press record, I can chat, I can edit, and I can publish. So please bear with me. This first segment I've done like 5 or 6 times, so I'm actually going to move it to later in the show, but in the show notes it'll come up as the first thing. So handspun knitting, I'm just going to leave for a little bit because I've said that section I don't even know how many times. So I'm going to go straight to what's on my bookshelf and what I'm reading, which is absolutely nothing. We've been in the middle of a kitchen renovation. So right after I recorded February's show, we ripped out our kitchen, and we've been in the midst of renos ever since. So we only did our kitchen. Everything is hooked up. We've got cabinets again. We're totally and completely functional. We've just got a couple of little things left. So the backsplash is almost done, and we need the hood fan installed, and that's it. So big weight off our shoulders, but it made the month really crazy. We've had good days and really good weeks. James has been awesome. Nora's been pretty good. Her napping schedule's been a bit affected because of the noise from the renos, but it's actually been overall pretty good. And some of my really good friends and I have been able to get together in the midst of all of it and have play dates, and the contractors have been really great about just taking my cell phone number and calling if anything comes up. So in the midst of all of this, there wasn't a lot of knitting and there wasn't a lot of spinning. And then when I was getting everything together for the show for March, because I started prepping the first weekend of March, tried to record that weekend, didn't happen. So I kind of had amassed this pile, and then the last weekend there was Fibers West, which I'll talk about later in the show, and so I'd amassed kind of more of a pile to talk about. And so this weekend, when I was getting everything together, I have quite a pile of stuff to talk to you about and stuff to show you. So I think what I'm going to do is just jump right in, and I'm going to skip what's on my bookshelf this month, and I'm going to go straight into what I'm prepping to spin and what's actually on my wheel right now. And I just realized I left one of the things that I wanted to show you over there, so I'm going to grab it, and then we'll pick right back up and talk about fiber prep, what's on my wheel, and then we'll go back to handspun knitting, because I think by then I'll be kind of able to talk about that. So I'm going to take a really quick break, and we'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, welcome back. So what I'm prepping to spin, I'm going to blast through this really fast because I've talked about it a lot, and Chrissy, who has the video cast snappy stitches. She's talked about this a lot as well. So back in September, we were able to get some raw fleece from the Glen Forest fleece, from the auction that was held locally here. Chrissy's talked about it a lot over on her show, and there's links below. So this was a Glen Forest. It's been carded into a bat. I borrowed my friend Diana's drum carder because I don't actually have one, and I'm kind of torn about getting one. And I've been spinning. Here's my first bobbin. So I showed you in February a knitted swatch of this and the skein of it. And I dyed it at that point? I'm not sure that I had dyed it. Anyways, I don't want to get into all of it because it's complicated and I don't want to waste time talking about this. But here's the first full bobbin, and that was two of these 1 ounce bats. So I put all of what I had, which I think was like 3.5 pounds, something like that. I threw it all through the drum carder. I've got about half a pound left that I just put aside to play with. And I've been spinning long backward straw, so true woolen. This is Glen Forest is a down breed, and I'm going to knit it up. Eventually it'll be a custom fit Charlie's cardigan, which if you look on my projects page in Ravelry, again, my username is Well for Pearls, you'll see all of the links there for that sweater. But I already have the pattern. I already generated it in the custom fit software. If you don't know about custom fit, it's an Amy Herzog's brainchild. She's the blogger over at Make Wear Love. I'll link it down below, but eventually this will be hopefully a purpley gray kind of bluish kettle dyed Charlie's cardigan. So this is the first bobbin, and I'm just gonna spin away. I'm trying to empty all my bobbins right now, and then I can spin as much as I can, ply it all, and then I'll start the next batch of bobbins, ply it all, and keep it going. So that's the Glen Forest. That's what I've been prepping, and that's what I'm spinning. To get it onto the drum carder, we flicked out the locks and then threw them through the drum carder. So that's actually been working quite well. I'm glad that that part of the fiber prep is done and that I'm onto the spinning part, because it was, I actually hurt my fingers quite badly flicking. I think I wasn't being careful enough, and the flick carder kind of got me in the finger quite badly, and it still is quite sore. Of all the random things, right? So anyways, kind of silly. The other thing that is actually on my wheel, and it's going to be off my wheel like really, really fast, is my Sweet Georgia Superwash Merino and Nylon July 2014 Fiber Club. This was called Strawberry Season, and actually I'm not going to talk about it any more than that. I'm just going to show my bobbins ready to ply. I've got my jumbo flyer on my wheel, and hopefully that'll be done tonight. I'm not going to talk about that anymore because I want to talk about this sort of study that I did, and I'll talk about it more in April. So stay tuned for that. And it might be a blog post before then, and then I'll kind of talk about the highlights, not in April, but yeah, I won't say any more about that. I'm not really sure kind of what I'm going to do with that. So I'm kind of blasting through really quickly because I'm already at what is finished. So I thought maybe the first thing that I would show you was a random spin that I did in February. This was 2F by hand mixed BFL, and I'll pop in close and see if you can really see this. I think I did a blog post on this. I don't remember. This was Football and Tulips. And actually the funny thing is, when I was spinning it, I was like, yeah, I can kind of see that. It's probably an American, I'm thinking maybe somebody knows. It's like American team colors, and then the rose color that's thrown in there is where she got the color from, the colorway name. I don't know. But it's got this beautiful camel colored brownie gold color in here. And then the baby blue. And then the rest of it's quite pink. It's like this really soft, like gray pastel-y pink. And then these bright hits of like magenta red. So really fun. The natural light's coming in over here. I'm going to turn the blind a little bit actually. Sorry for my reach here. I think you'll really be able to see it, how beautiful this is. So I didn't do a lot of prep for this. What I did, and you can see it's just a traditional 2-ply. Nothing super special. Didn't get tons of yardage on this. Oh, I didn't write my yardage on here. I didn't get tons of yardage, and that's okay. Like, I don't always have to get tons. This is what I would call a heavy DK. And what I did was, this is the Morph Sweet Georgia, but I thought I would use it to demo a few things today. What I did to create this, just random, is I took the braid of fiber and I literally just divided it in half. So pretend this is that colorway. And so I just lined it up and then I broke it here. And then I had the 2 lengths. So then I set the 2 separate. And then I just pulled the fiber apart each kind of length, and I just kept pulling it apart and created sort of pencil rovings that were probably about yay thick. So way thicker than what I usually spin with. And then I just practiced my wonder what that is. That's weird. Sorry about that pause. I have no idea what that was. And then I just practiced my short backwards draw and trying to just be really consistent. So this was a mixed VFL. So I knew the staple length was a little bit longer. So what I was practicing was really trying to stay within that 2-inch drafting zone. So it's a little bit thick and thin in spots. Like I definitely have some thicker spots where I was not like I didn't pull all the way back that 2 inches, and then there's places that are quite thin where I pulled too far back. But I was just trying to really practice that being really consistent short backwards draw. So that's what this was, and actually I really like it. So. I'm not sure what it'll be. I'm actually thinking the Reiki hat that everybody's knitting right now, because I think this in a garter stitch would look really cool. So I don't know. We'll see. So that was one thing that was off my wheel. I'm going to pause here. I think it's my timer for dinner. So I'm just going to turn that off and I will be right back. Okay, sorry about that. It was my timer for dinner. It was just the rice. So I wanted to make sure that I pulled it off the element so it didn't get overcooked. All right, so the next things that's come off my wheel this month was some Hummingbee Farm local wool. It's not labeled by what the breed is, so I suspect it's a whole bunch of fleeces that were thrown in and then processed at a local, sort of relatively locally. So this is like a commission spin, quote unquote. This was for my mom. My dad, his birthday is St. Patrick's Day. And my mom really wanted to. We're not really doing gifts anymore in our family for those of us adults. There's grandkids now and there's nieces and nephews, and we all just feel like it's a little bit too much. So, but my mom likes to get my dad a little bit of something. So she asked me if I'd be interested in spinning some yarn for a new toque for him. I had knit him a toque years ago that he's just worn and worn and worn, and actually the yarn is pilling really badly. It hasn't worn as well as I thought that it would. It's a superwash, and I can't even remember what the brand is now. I saw my Ravelry page. Anyways, the toque's on its last leg, so my mom really wanted to crochet him a new toque. So I told her I would do the yarn for her, no problem. So this is what ended up coming of this sort of unnamed local wool. So I bought 6 ounces of it. She wanted a heavy worsted light Aran. So this is the label for Hummingbee. And this was the last 2 ounces of this local wool. So this is what I started with, and I still have to spin this up, but I wanted to do the first 4 ounces for her so that she could see what she was getting, and then I would know for yardage what I had, and So this is it. It's this royal blue. It's got navies and blacks in it, and it's really pretty. It's something that I would like. So I've loved spinning it. The staple length is quite, it's not that long. It's quite short. And it's a little teeny tiny bit on the coarser side, slightly. I think some people would feel this and be like, oh no, I couldn't wear that next to my skin, but I think it's fine. I'm thinking it's probably like local Suffolk and Corriedale and stuff. I suspect it's like a local wool. I suspect it's sort of like a combination of a whole bunch of different stuff. So I actually picked this up at Fibers West, so I'll be talking a little bit about this later, but I thought I'd share this now. So this is the first 4 ounces, and I got I think this is 140 yards, and to be safe, I think I was hoping for, like, out of all 6 ounces, I think I wanted like 180, 190 yards, so I'll be able to get that out of this, no problem. And my mom can go to town on the toque that she's going to do for my dad. So that was kind of nice doing a collaborative project with her. So we gave my dad the fiber, and I gave him the yarn. Like, I gave him sort of the fiber, and my mom had the fiber, and then I showed him the yarn, and he was quite pleased. So he appreciates all this handmade stuff. So that was kind of neat to be able to give that to him. So, I've got that going, and we'll, I think I'm going to try and finish that over the next week or so that I can free up more bobbins for my Clen Forest. So, and then it also gets it done, and my mom can start working on the toque whenever she wants. We're totally out of toque wearing season now. But I think my mom wanted a project to work on in the car and when they go camping this summer and stuff, and then he can wear it in the fall. So, and actually when we're camping, we often do wear toques in the evening because it gets quite cool. So, yeah, that was kind of a fun project. Just a traditional 2-ply. I literally took the way that Humming Bee Farms does her fiber. She sells them in 2-ounce bumps. So I basically took 2 ounces, the one of the 2-ounce bumps, spun that to one bobbin, took the other 2 ounces, spun that to a bobbin, and then plied them together. So it was really simple, really straightforward, and really fast. I think I did it in like 2 evenings. So that was kind of fun, because usually my stuff takes longer than that. What else do I have finished? I have my Spunky Eclectic finished. I just did a blog post about this weekend, so it's not really something super new and interesting that you haven't seen if you follow the blog, but this was a mixed merino. It was November's club colorway for Spunky Eclectic. So it was a mixed merino and or dark merino. What did she call it? I think she called it a dark merino. Anyways, it was inspired by the Pirates of the Caribbean, and she called it the Black Pearl, which I thought was just awesome. Totally Johnny Depp inspired. Sorry, it's got dog hair all over it. The dogs are shedding right now because it's the spring, and so like the dog hair, because we've got golden retrievers. Oh my goodness, I can't keep up. So there's red, and it's like a maroon red, and see, you can see the dog hair hanging off there, and green with the brown. It's very earthy, very natural. So with this, I was practicing spinning across the top. I wish I hadn't done it with this because I was really excited about this club colorway, and I'm not super happy with the yarn. In the end, I ended up with about 300 yards, so it's enough to do something with, and I think I'm going to do a scarf. But I wish I had practiced on just some Corriedale out of my stash, not this, but in the end it actually wasn't too bad for evenness. I don't know if you can see, like, it's not terrible considering I was practicing a new technique. So spinning across the top, JC Boggs Faulkner talks about it in the Craftsy class, drafting from worsted to woolen. I would highly recommend checking it out if you haven't. So basically what it is where you have processed comb top, and when you're drafting, you literally draft across the top. So you learn to go back and forth. And it involves moving your thumb across so that where your thumb sits on your fiber, I don't know if everybody maybe even knows this, but wherever your thumb sits on your fiber, when you draft out, right behind your thumb is where that fiber is going to come from. So the idea with learning how to spin across the top is that you can preserve colorways, and you can, you go, across the blue, across the cream, across the brown, across the yellow. And the idea is that you don't have to strip your fiber, you don't have to do a lot of pre-drafting, you can just sit down and spin. This taught me that I don't like spinning across the top, and I did a little bit of it with this as well, and then I abandoned ship and I started stripping it down. I think spinning across the top probably works quite well with super washes because they're slippery, but with this it was not super processed, and it was just a really lovely comb top that was just, I think the effort of stripping it down and pre-drafting it and stuff, it would have really created a yarn that I was a lot happier with. It's got a lot of sproing and bounce and stuff, but I think my consistency in spinning it would have been a little bit better. Whereas I think with superwash, when you're spinning across the top, it's so slippery, and I can really see the advantage, or like that it would be a lot easier. But I just didn't really enjoy it. It was a lot of fiber to hold in my hand, and I totally get the idea. I really appreciate the theory behind it and the reason for knowing how to do it, but I don't think it's for me. I think I like pre-drafting and stripping down my fiber, and if I want to preserve a color repeat like this, for example, I should just leave this undone because I keep unraveling it. I often will just take off that part and I'll spin that, and then if there's some left over, I'll take off that part, spin that, and then it just naturally progresses down without having to hold all of this fiber while you're spinning. Does that make sense? If that doesn't make sense, please leave a comment and I'll explain what I mean if you're interested in preserving color repeats without actually having to learn to spin across the top. I've got fiber in my nose now from all of this and the dog hair. I don't have allergies, but sometimes it just is, it's hard to talk. So, yeah, that was a really good lesson for me to learn that that's not necessarily something for me, and that's okay because not everything is for everyone, right? Yeah. So those are my finished skeins of yarn for this month. That's what I got done. It's actually quite a lot considering we were up to our eyeballs in renos. I pulled out my wheel 2 or 3 days before the renos started, after I recorded in February, and then after that it literally sat for like 2 weeks. So this I just finished this past week, and this I finished this past week, so it was pretty good. Like 2 skeins of finished yarn, so 8 ounces spun. That's not true. This was half done already, so this is only actually 2 ounces that I finished. So still 6 ounces in a week, that's pretty good. Hi everyone, sorry about that. My mic walked in right as I was going to start this section. So handspun knitting, I've actually got some really exciting stuff to show you. I showed you this last month. This was my Sweet Georgia Yarns Superwash BFL in the Hummingbird colorway. I had Navajo plied it. I did a blog post about this, so hopefully if you have any questions about any of this, check there and what the original like skeined yarn looked like and stuff. But I had a chance to knit up some socks. So these are actually a lot brighter in real life. The camera's not going to totally do them justice. If I tilt them, you can actually see a little bit closer to what they really are like. And look at the heels. They match. So, and my toes match. And when you see the socks side by side, they're so super similar. Even the bind off was the same. Like, look at that. I finished off with lime green on both of them. So I'm super happy with these. I used the Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern written by the Socks Therapist. This is my favorite sock pattern that's out there and available. I think this is my 4th pair now out of this pattern. I have a really narrow heel, and so does my husband, and for whatever reason this particular short row heel fits both of us really well. So I'm not sure I'll ever use another heel, although I would like to do some afterthought heels, but yeah, isn't that cool how they match? So the 2 hanks of yarn, what I did to create this, and it was just like I was just hoping it would work out, but I thought I would show you with some Sweet Georgia. So this has already been stripped down and it's already been split in half. So here's the other half of the braid. So try to imagine that this, what I'm holding here, is 4 ounces. And what I wanted to do was make sure that when I was spinning, and I needed 2 bobbins to Navajo ply so that I had 2 skeins of yarn so that I could knit 2 at a time. So what I did with the original braid was I actually folded it to find the color repeat. So I didn't care if I had a tail hanging off the end, this is exactly what happened when I laid out the hummingbird colorway. But I had my color repeat here, and so I broke it here and I broke it here, and then I took these 2, so ignore this, I put that aside, okay? So then I took these 2 separate, like this was going to be one sock, this was going to be the other sock, and what I did was I started stripping this down into thinner and thinner pieces. And then when I think I had like 16 or something. No, I did 8. That's right. I did 8, and then I did it to this, and I did 8. And then I stripped those 8 in half, so I ended up with 16, and then I did that with this one. So that I had the exact same amount of fiber, like pre-drafted pieces. And then I took this last little bit that was left, because the same thing happened with the hummingbird. It was about this long. And I split it in half, put it in 2 different piles, and then split it 16 times. So then what I did was my original, so I ended up with 4 piles. And so out of my 2 original piles, I put 1 aside, and then of this little ender pile, I put that aside. And then when I was spinning, I would pick up 1 from the first pile, 1 from the second pile, and I'd always start with the same color. And I think with these, it was the navy blue, and so I'd just go navy blue and spin it all the way to the end, grab from pile number 2. It was also navy blue. It just worked out that way, that on the original fiber, the colorway just worked out that this was navy blue at the end. So I just spun navy blue, navy blue, navy blue was the starting color, and then I did that same thing with the second bobbin with those second 2 piles of pre-drafted little nests, and I ended up with 2 matching socks. I'm shocked. I couldn't believe it. So a little bit of planning and a little bit of forethought can go a long way. Isn't that cool? So I wanted to pull this out to show you, because I just hope that makes sense, my explanation. And if it doesn't, or if you've got more questions, please don't hesitate to comment in the show notes or in the comments below. But I was really amazed at how perfectly matched the socks are. So one of my goals for 2015 was to knit myself a pair of handspun socks. I had knit Mike a pair of handspun socks last year. And for the Sweet Georgia Yarn Summer of Socks knit along, spin along. And so he loves them so much, and he's worn them a ton. So I wanted a pair for myself as well. So now, goal achieved. Check. So it's kind of fun. The next thing that I wanted to show you that was finished handspun knitting was my most favorite handspun, I think, knitted object item ever. This is the Shaylen shawl by Layla Rab. I absolutely love it. That's what it looks like on. And then I wear my winter coat over top or a cardigan. The pattern calls for 4 or 5 pattern repeats. I can't remember what it is. It's a pay for pattern. And pattern repeat is the stockinette section and the lace chart. So it's these two sections. So I think it's 5, 4. Anyways, I did 7 because I wanted to use up every last inch of yarn. And I think as it is, like after the bind off, I ended up with like 30, like a yard. I think it was like 36 or 42 inches left or something. And this was out of my Ancient Arts Fiber Crafts mixed BFL in the Frolic colorway. So it's quite dark because of the mixed BFL. It was a traditional 3-ply that I spun, and I showed it to you guys last month in February. It was still skeined. And I think I might have been just finishing plying one of the 2, because I had 8 ounces in total. And I think I was just finishing plying the last 4 ounces. And was just starting to knit, or maybe I had already cast on. I'm not totally sure. Anyways, when I cast this on and started knitting, I basically didn't do anything else for knitting or spinning while I was working on this. I would have way more hand spun skeins done if I hadn't have done this. I just love it, and I did do a blog post on it, but I had to just show you. It's super soft. It's very heathered looking, and this pattern lended itself perfectly to the hand spun, because even though it does have a little bit of gradient in the sense that it does change, like there is a little teeny tiny bit of striping, it just works in this pattern for whatever reason. It's just simple enough. I loved knitting it. It's super memorizable. If you can read your knitting, and she has a section at the end of the pattern on teaching you how to read your knitting, which I actually didn't even read it. But if you can read your knitting, you can actually keep track of where you are in the pattern without even looking at the pattern. So I think after the first, like, second or third chart repeat, I just left the pattern at home. The only modification that I made was the shawl is supposed to finish with the lace repeat. Sorry, I'm not holding this high enough. The shawl is supposed to finish here at the end of the lace repeat, and she gives a small modification for that final lace repeat. But I actually had enough yarn left over that I wanted to keep knitting, but I didn't have enough to do a full chart repeat. So I actually added 10 rows of garter stitch. So the light's over here, so I'm hoping that you can kind of see that. So there's 5 garter stitch ridges, and I think actually for kind of the rustic quality of this shawl, it actually works really well. So I would definitely do that again if it was kind of rustic-y kind of yarn again. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. I got lots of wear out of it after I finished it, and now that it's starting to warm up, I'm going to have to put it away for the fall. But that's okay. It's done. I love it. So I want to show you something totally different. I knit this. This is circa 2008, 2009. Is when I very first started spinning. It's my first knitted hand spun project ever. This was Merino 64s. It was my own pattern. I totally just made it up on the fly when I was knitting, because I only had a small amount of yarn that I had spun. And so it's a cowl. It's garter stitch, obviously. I have no idea how many stitches I cast on for. I have no idea how I placed the buttonholes. No idea. But what I wanted was something that I could wear under my jacket like this, so the jacket would come right up. But then when I was snowboarding, I wanted to be able to loop it up like this, like a balaclava. So that's kind of where the idea came from. I'm embarrassed to show you the edges. I think it's not my knitting, because I was looking at it and there's no drop stitches. I think it's just that the yarn is so thick and thin that the edge is quite wobbly. Like check that out. It's pretty hilarious. So yeah, this was a 2-ply. It was 4 ounces. It's quite dense and quite heavy, but because it's merino, it can kind of cope with that. It's got a lot of texture. It's actually quite pretty. I love the garter stitch, but I've never used it and I've never worn it. So originally this was kind of how I thought I would wear it. for when I was snowboarding, because I don't wear a toque. I don't wear a toque when I snowboard because I wear a helmet. And so I have my goggles on. And so I've always, like, up at Whistler, it gets really, really, really windy, especially as you get up high on the mountain, especially on the Blackcomb side. So, which is where all of the Olympic stuff was, all the snowboarding stuff was, it was at Cyprus, and then there was some stuff that was at, back in 2010 for the Olympics. Anyways, the Blackcomb side is, we used to refer to it as the snowboarders mountain, and Whistler was the skiers mountain. But it gets really windy. So this is what I wanted to be able to do, was kind of whip it up over my neck and my face like a balaclava, because my helmet's here and then my goggles. And I never used it. Can you believe it? So I have resurrected it. It's in our winter basket now, with all of our snowboarding and snowshoeing stuff. So I'm hoping to get James on a snowboard next year. So I'll be using this for sure. So I thought I'd show that to you. It's a little bit embarrassing because it's kind of, it's pretty elementary. But I was looking at it and I was like, you know what? It has it's got a place, and I had to start somewhere, as do we all. So that was that. This is Freckle Face Fibers, Merino 64s in the Safari colorway. She's not dying anymore, and I can't find her on Etsy anymore, but her colorways were, at that time in 2008, 2009, they were awesome. So yeah, first knitted handspun project ever. Cool, eh? The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about was Fibers West. I have fiber in my mouth. I always wonder how podcasters like recover from that when they're showing stuff, and then they're like, oh, I've got fiber in my mouth. And I think Chrissy from the Snappy Stitches ended up with like Angelina in her nose the other day. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't imagine. And then I went and did it to myself. Anyways, so Fibers West is a local fiber festival that is yearly. It happens in March, usually the second weekend of the month. It's quite a big show now. It's grown. It used to be out in Abbotsford, which is about 2 hours east of Vancouver, and now it's in Surrey, at the Cloverdale Exhibition Grounds. This year it was at the Agriplex, which is quite a big, it's sort of envisioned like a big red barn. That's what it looks like from the outside. And the inside, they do dog trials. There's horse stuff that sometimes goes on in there. But they can put in a floor. And so the floor was in on Friday and Saturday. And there was a lot of vendors. There were some vendors that had traveled quite far. And Hanson East Mini Spinners was there. I got to chat with Kevin Hanson. And I also got to try the Woolly Winder, the Standard Flyer, and the Lace Flyer, which was really fun. I'm not interested in buying a Hanson right now, but I know my friend Chrissy over at Snappy Stitches, she loves hers. And I wanted an opportunity to sit and spin on it for a while. And that was really fun because it is a tool that I would like to buy eventually, like way down the road. But right now, I wanted to get my Lundrum more. So that was really neat. It was great talking to Kevin. He's really friendly. And he's really proud of his tools and what he's created, so it was really neat to hear his passion. Ancient Arts Fiber Crafts, who are the ones that this was the fiber for, they were there, but they only brought sock yarn, which was too bad because I love their fiber. But the booths were quite small, and I think that's something for next year, that if the booths were bigger, that would be really great, because a lot of the vendors were kind of squooshed in. And people really brought a lot. It was really spinning heavy. And there was a few vendors there that I had never heard of that are actually local. So that was really neat, because like Humming Bee Farm I found out about and got to see her stuff in person. Smith and You, they're from Kamloops, which is 3 hours north of here. They were here, and they were at Knit City as well, and I love her stuff, although I didn't get anything this time. But her stuff is great colors, very lots of stuff that I tend to kind of gravitate to. I felt really rushed this time because I had left the kids with my best friend for the morning, because she owed me a little bit of babysitting hours, because I take her little girl when she's working. And I felt rushed because I felt like I had to get back because she had the 3 kids, so my 2 plus hers. And so I'm not sure I would do that again. I think I maybe would go on the Saturday when Mike's got the kids, but on the other hand, it was great to not take up a weekend day to do it. So, and I was with my mom, and her priorities at shows like that are always different from mine because I'm the knitter and the spinner, but she's into crochet, so she wanted to look at the yarn, and she had lots of questions, and the way that yarn is labeled now, and the gauges and the weight of yarn, everything, it still kind of flummoxes her a little bit. So yeah, but overall it was a great show. I had a couple of friends who were teaching in the show, and I think that and I hope they really enjoyed their experience and at least got a chance to go through the marketplace. So what did I get? I showed you the humming bee that I bought already that I spun up for my dad. I bought some more humming bee. It was this navy blue and gold and teal that I just couldn't leave behind. It's a Coriadale. It's nothing really super special, but I saw it and I just kept going back to it, and I kept, touching it. And they say that's the worst thing to do if you're trying not to buy, because as soon as you touch it, you have a sense of ownership. So if you don't want to buy anything, don't touch anything. But like, these are totally my colors: navy blue, gold, like that great like saffrony kind of gold orange, and then the teal. So I have 4 ounces of this, and it's Coriadale. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, but I am going to spin it up soon because I'm thinking actually just a 2-ply. Spin this 2 ounces to one bob and the other 2 ounces to the other bob, and apply them together. And I'm actually thinking a toque, because actually I need a new toque. So for next year. So I think I might do that with that. I'm not totally sold. Maybe actually I really need a pair of leg warmers for over my boots, so I might do that. I bought a ton of this, and I'm probably going to do another Shaylen shawl, and I braided it up so that you could really see it. This is Lynn Anderson of West Coast Color and Carding. Lots of people have been talking about her lately. This was her Polworth in silk, and I got 113 grams, 2 113 gram bumps, and then a third 119 bumps. So I'm going to do for sure a 2-ply, but I'm actually thinking a 3-ply, and see what my yardage is, and then go from there, because I'd like another Shaylen shawl, but I'd like it bigger. Or I was thinking something like an even bigger shawl. So this was Polworth in silk, and I saw it, and I kept walking away, and then I came back, and then I walked away, and then I came back. But I wanted to get one thing of fiber that was big enough to actually do something with. Not necessarily a sweater, but something. And so this ended up being what I got. She doesn't name her colorways generally. So this is just greens and grays and kind of a pinky mauvey purple. So really happy with that. So I got that. I'm going to throw that on the wheel soon. I need to get through that Clun Forest first. Feeling a bit bogged down with the Clun, but I don't want to set it aside, because if I do, then I won't pick it back up again. That Coriadale that I just showed you, I had braided it as well, so you could really see the colors. So that's it there. Really pretty. So I actually had some other stash enhancement, what do people call it? Stash enhancement this month, but I actually didn't bring them out to show you, because I'd rather save some stuff to show you when I'm actually spinning it, and I can talk about what I do with it rather than just showing you fiber. There's lots and lots of indie dyers out there. There's lots of fiber out there. There's lots of people doing really cool stuff. So just showing, bumps of fiber, sometimes I don't think is that interesting, I don't think. So, although I always want to see what everybody else has. So, but I'm going to save some of that other stuff that I got, because I've not been buying anything because of getting my wheel. And then for whatever reason in March, I've ended up with a few things. So I'll just save some of that other stuff. I also got a new flick carder. It's just an Ashford. I got this from Brenda, who is the organizer of the show, actually, from her Penelope Fiber Arts booth, because actually my flit carder was an old one, and when I was doing the Clon Forest and prepping the stuff for the drum carder, I don't know what happened, but it was a really super old secondhand one that I had found, and it caught my fingers quite badly several times, whereas when I had used a proper flit carder at my friend Diana's house and at Chrissy's, when it caught my hand, it didn't hurt so much. But mine was so old and the tines are so sharp that, man, it hurt. And it actually like gashed apart this finger quite badly. So it's still healing actually. So I thought, you know what, for $23 Canadian, I can get a new flit carder. So I did. The other thing that I got was something kind of random. I saw it hanging there and I picked it up and I bought it. I'm not usually like that. But my mom saw it and she's like, "Are you going to buy that?" And I said, "Yeah." And she kind of just looked at me and I was like, "Trust me, Mom, this is awesome." But she's not a spinner, so she kind of was just looking at me funny. So this is Blackcomb Fiber Farms, and they're located in Kamloops, same as Smith & U. And this is BFL lamb. So this is roving. It's not comb top. It's still got some veggie matter in it. And I saw it and I just fell in love with it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. It's quite roughly processed. So I might have to spend a little bit of time kind of cleaning it up a little bit. But I just love the colors. So yeah, see if I can get it to focus there. Really cool stuff. So this is from Blackcomb Fiber Farms, and she's online. So is Humming Bee Farms. West Coast Color and Carding. So Lynn is actually, she's hired somebody to, she's in our guild and everything, and I actually, with a friend of mine, I actually just bought a raw fleece from her from up in Salmon Arm. It's a Romney Merino Cross, and I haven't talked about it yet because we're still in the process of getting it prepped. But Lynn has actually hired somebody to set up her online shop and to get her online. So her stuff will be available, because those of us who are from kind of the greater Vancouver area, we rant and rave about her stuff, but nobody else can get it yet. So that'll be coming soon. Lynn was telling me about how that's been going in that process. So there will be her stuff will be available online quite soon. She said hopefully by this summer, so that would be really great, because actually I want to get her stuff too, without necessarily having to drive to her home. So that is everything. I'm hoping that in April I will be able to get a show out on the Easter weekend. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the show, but I am back to work now. My maternity leave is over. Nora is turning 1 next weekend, and I work weekends. So I hope that at some point I'll be able to record, even if it's in the evening. But we'll see. I'm going to take some of the pressure off of myself in terms of like getting a show out by the second weekend and trying to have the show notes done. And I'm going to go back to kind of more what I was doing a year ago after Nora was born, where, you know, it was sort of more of just an alternative way of posting a blog post. So I will let you know how that goes, but there will be an April show, and I'll still be doing monthly shows, but I'm just going to kind of take a step back and not put too much pressure on myself to get these shows out by a certain specific date, because it takes the fun out of it. And you know, the recording is one thing, but there's still the editing and everything, so it's supposed to be fun and an opportunity for us to just chat about our love of these hobbies rather than putting a bunch of pressure on ourselves. So I'm sure you guys can understand. So until April, I hope everybody had a wonderful spring break. I hope it's not too wintry where you are. And happy spring, because it was officially spring yesterday. Have an amazing couple of weeks, and I will chat to you soon. Bye, everyone.